engine.
And when you ask a good question, we give it to Matt on Fridays. He tries to find a good answer. And I've often wondered about this. Ethanol in your gasoline.
Yep, and there's been a lot of rhetoric about this over the years. You know, a couple of studies done about cars, but maybe not about those, smaller engines. You know, a lot of lobbyists talking about ethanol on both sides. So I went in search of a couple of local guys who really just do not have a dog in this fight at all. Mechanics who spend all day working on engines, and I asked them, have they seen any impact since ethanol started getting added to gasoline back in 2007? Let's see. At Craig's Service Center in Salt Lake City, they tell me they have seen gas sales double ever since they added an ethanol-free gas option for their customers. At the vast majority of gas stations, consumers can only find fuel that contains up to 10% ethanol. Ethanol, which in the United States is primarily produced using corn crops, is billed as a way to cut fuel costs and pollution. But does putting ethanol into small engines like a snow thrower or a lawnmower have any impact? It's a good question.
It's become a more mandatory in-fuel item.
I brought your question here to Speed's Power Equipment in Salt Lake City. 7-year mechanic Trevor Carpenter says he has absolutely seen an ethanol impact since it was introduced to fuel back in 2007. And he says it is not in a good way. People have been coming in with problems?
Left and right.
Trevor says that because ethanol is an alcohol, it acts kind of like a cleaning solution inside engines, which ironically is a bad thing. He says that ethanol often removes the gunk from inside of an engine, but then deposits that gunk somewhere else that it doesn't belong.
All the little debris and such that it's helping to clean up is getting lodged up into the jets and preventing the machine from getting the proper amount of fuel.
And as an alcohol, Trevor says ethanol burns hotter. We put together a test using 2 identical brand new leaf blowers. We put standard 10% ethanol gasoline into one and an ethanol-free gasoline into the other. We fired them up at the exact same time, waited a few minutes, and then took a temperature reading. We found that the blower that was using gas that does contain ethanol was nearly 100 degrees warmer, and Trevor says those higher temps can be problematic. What does burning at a hotter temperature do?
It kind of weakens the metal.
Trevor says that he believes ethanol in car engines does not pose a big problem because most cars are equipped with computers that make sure the engine compensates for any problems caused by ethanol. Plus, because cars are driven every day, the fuel does not have a chance to sit still for a real long time. Compare that to small engines, which are used seasonally and thus often sit for months.
I just measured out 1 cup of water.
By adding water to these jars of different fuels, Trevor showed me the problem that can come with months of moisture seeping into a stagnant gas tank. While water and gas is never a good combination, ethanol gas bonds with the water. You can see how that ethanol and water make a white, cloudy gunk. And that stuff you say is bad for engines?
Yes.
And that, Trevor says, leads to the most common complaint he hears as a small engine mechanic.
Most of the machines that we've had come through usually have a fuel-related issue where my snow thrower won't start, my chainsaw's not running well.
Guys at Speed say the best thing you can do when you get to the end of a season on a snow thrower or a lawnmower, you guys, is what you want to do is take that fuel that you have left in those machines, get it out of there somehow, burn it off, dump it out. It's the best way you can preserve and get that ethanol out of there so it doesn't sit all year round. Thanks for the good question.
Good advice. Sorry, Matt. Thanks.
And we learned tonight, Sterling, it's not called a snow blower, it's called a snow thrower. Did you know that?